private sector said, welcome to the real world. I'm not sure I fully agree with that, but that's their perspective. What I want to do is just share with you a couple of observations that relate to some of the things that I've observed over the last, I was first elected in 1969 as a kid, so we're talking about a long period of time. I guess the first observation I make to you is the fact that I've come to realize that everything is connected to everything. What I mean by that is if you're in the private sector, you really do have to understand the public sector framework within which you operate. You will be able to be performing much, much better than if you don't understand what's going on in that area. Likewise, if you're in the public sector, it is absolutely essential to be able to understand the private sector, to understand the marketplace forces, to understand the free enterprise system. But I can confess to you that I didn't have that understanding that I have now when I was in office, and probably would have been a little more effective if I had a little bit of that understanding. And then the third sector is becoming more and more important. I'm talking about the nonprofit sector, NGOs, philanthropic groups, academic institutions, things of that sort. I've been involved over the last number of years with the Regional Plan Association, which is a fairly prestigious group of people in land use planning. I've worked now with the Healthcare Quality Institute. I've done a couple of things in the banking industry. And it's been an interesting experience because I've come to understand that the third sector is growing in importance, because there are lots of things that the private sector used to do that don't do now because there's no money to be made out of it. There's a lot of things that the public sector doesn't do because they don't have the money to do it. And so, fortunately enough, you have the third sector willing to step in and fill a whole lot of social needs, which is something that's extremely important for all of us. The second observation I'd like to make to you, which is really the heart of my remarks tonight, deals with change. In some respects, what I'll be talking about is the changing nature of change. I think it's something that we don't fully appreciate how things are changing. Change is a constant, we all know that. But there are those periods, periodically, that are periods of change that is rapid, that is dramatic, very complex, and somewhat destabilizing. I mean, for the students of history here, we think about the post-Civil War period. Institutions were changing, whole industries were starting to grow up, and there was a great amount of dislocation, a great amount of stress. And then the period, the end of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century, when we literally, in a very short period of time, went from being an agrarian economy to an industrial economy. One of my professors, I did graduate work at Columbia, Richard Hofstadter, some of you may have heard of, The Age of Reform. He outlines the difficulties, the stressful times during that period of time, with new institutions, labor unions, child labor laws, a whole lot of things started to come to the fore, but it was a very dislocating period of time. And then, of course, the time of the Great Depression, and we had, similar to now, financial institutions, financial services groups going under, unemployment rates of 20–25% of the population. So the characteristic of all these periods of time are dislocation, disruption, and caused largely as a result of the changing nature of times and the non-changing institutions, agencies, and laws. So what you have is a mismatch. Things are changing rapidly, and the policies that are meant to deal with the things that we're supposed to be dealing with aren't changing commensurate with that degree of change. And that's the theme that I'm going to develop tonight, because I think it's something that's important for all of us to think about.